I don't like quite how we only have up to Jesus's waist.
Yeah, that's tough. We're live though, so anyway, well, howdy all. This is Kyle Whittington. I am joined today in my house by a good friend of mine, James Lewis.
Hey, everybody.
We actually met at a Pints with Aquinas event back in October of 2021. So
Yeah.
it's been a couple of years now,
Yeah.
almost. And so it turns out like he lived right down the road per se from ish, like 2 hours down the road. And so anyway, we connected. He actually, you are actually a member, a registered member of the same church that I go to, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Despite living like, however long away.
It's an hour and 40 for me, but
yeah,
it's a little long.
Yeah.
A little longer for me.
Yeah. But anyway, so James here is a convert to the Catholic faith. And
I am indeed.
So today we are going to be talking about that story. So I'm going to lean back, and James, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. So I started out like my family of origin. We've been Christian for, I guess, a couple generations at least, if not 3 or 4. So I grew up in a Christian home, and Christianity was definitely, we were pretty strong in our faith as well. Regular Bible study, I was homeschooled. So a part of my schooling was to study the Bible. And we went to a Calvary Chapel. I think somebody, I don't know if it was on your stream or another stream, fairly recently mentioned it. I'm like, hey, that's where I came from too. Oh. So my growing up was very steeped in Scripture, and that was I came to love the Scripture. So that's definitely something that came really useful when I encountered the Catholic faith. My now wife introduced me to the faith, and in early 2013.
Okay.
While I was still in school, I was most of the way through my mechanical engineering schooling, and this was the first time I heard of Catholicism, and so I was looking into it with a blank slate, and that was really useful because my former faith community was really not Catholic friendly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 1 out of 3, 1 out of 6 or so people there were former Catholics of one sort or another. Sometimes militantly so, sometimes just fallen away because they didn't know their faith, or they were rent from their faith by whatever.
Right.
Like a campus ministry or whatever. So when I started looking into the faith, I was coming into it with a completely blank slate. I didn't have any preconceived notions about the church, and that allowed me to really take seriously the claims of the Catholic faith. Over time, I figured out fairly quickly, actually, that the thing that was gonna be the thing for me was the Eucharist. Like, if what the Catholic Church teaches about the Eucharist is true, I must become Catholic. If what the Church teaches about the Eucharist is not true, then I must help Catholics become not so. So that was like it's kind of surprises me how quickly I came to understand that, source and summit of the faith, that is the thing. This is the hill to die on.
Right.
But
yeah.
And coincidentally, I went to the Holy Land at the end of that semester, and I stuffed into the Western Wall a prayer like, God, show me the way you want me to go, and give me the bravery, give me the courage to go there. So that was 2013. It was a really fast conversion. I was introduced to it in like January. I determined, yes, I need to become Catholic in like May.
Right.
And then started RCIA in September. And my pastor at the time said, like, you're probably ready right now, because I was already baptized. And I was brought in November 23rd, 2013. So 5 months away from my 10th anniversary.
Nice. Okay, cool. So it sounds like you didn't really have any objections or anything. Like, did you have any like Protestant friends that were like showing concern of like, hey, if you do this, you're going straight to hell?
Not the you're going straight to hell kind, but I did have a lot of friends and acquaintances from my parents' church who were anti-Catholic, and they were feeding me one story, and then I'm looking to the church to see what she says about herself, and that helped me balance what they were saying. So I did have to wrestle a lot with certain issues. Like I was saying earlier, the primary one really was the Eucharist. When it all boiled down, everything is secondary to the Eucharist. If not the Eucharist, nothing else. So that was basically the fulcrum upon which I had to wrestle everything else. So that was the primary thing. The praying to Mary thing was a real issue for like about 2 weeks, and
only 2 weeks.
Only 2 weeks. But I was putting more time and energy into studying the Catholic faith than my mechanical engineering studies. So like the thumbnail says, it was a relentless pursuit of truth. I could not stop with like knowing most of it. I had to keep on going until I fully understood. And that's been the theme of, well, I would like to say that's the theme of my life.
Okay.
The relentless pursuit of truth, and not resting, not giving up until I am confident. And then as soon as I felt confident in something, and I would go back with my wife now. She and I, to give a little bit of backstory, she and I were just talking remotely. We were introduced online very late 2012, and then she introduced me to the faith in early 2013.
Actually, I do kind of want to back up a little bit. So you were in college at this time. Was she going to school with you?
No,
okay, that makes sense.
We were fully remote.
Because from what I understand about the University of Missouri at Rolla, it's kind of one of those places where the men are men, the women are men, and the sheep are nervous.
You know what? It's really funny. So when I say I studied mechanical engineering, and they hear I'm from Rolla, they're like, "Oh, you went to MS&T?" Like, actually, no, I went to LeTourneau University in East Texas, so it's a very similar school.
Okay,
very.
There are no women.
When I started, it's really weird though. Like when I graduated, the incoming freshman was 51% female.
Huh.
Yeah. So. Well, because we we introduced a nursing degree. So we weren't we weren't an engineering school anymore. We weren't just an engineering school anymore.
Nice. So, fun fact about the guitar, John. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I don't mean to brag a little, but whenever it comes to the guitar, I am what's known as a poser. I took like one guitar lesson from my RCIA sponsor, like way back in the day, and that was it. So and I bought the guitar, and like it's still here. So that is I will not subject this stream to my non-existent guitar skills. So anyway, all right. So thanks for the super chat. But okay, so you met her online. Was it like through like a dating app or something like that, or?
You'll get a real kick out of this.
Okay.
I've never
actually heard the story of how you and your wife met.
Okay. We met on YouTube. Normally, you only find enemies in the comment section.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. I found my wife. It's hilarious. Okay. Guess, shot in the dark. What do you think the title of the video was?
Okay, so this would have been 2013. Oh my goodness.
December 2012, actually. But yeah.
December 2012. What was happening in 2012? I don't know. My first thought goes to that was an election year. It's probably something political.
No, so the title of the video is "How to Know When You're in Love." There's somewhat of a chance that your audience may coincide or have some overlap with Blimey Cow. Do you know anything about Blimey Cow?
Okay. So fun fact: the Blimey Cow guy. There was a video that I once did. I can't remember. Oh, it was a video that I did about like why I love the Latin Mass. And there was a part where I went like number 4 or whatever, and like that was 100% stolen from Blimey Cow.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Blimey Cow. We were both homeschooled. We were both Christian. So we were both subscribers to Blimey Cow.
Okay.
And so my comment was to Jordan, the host, and I was like, "Hey, Jordan, you and I would have been friends if we knew each other in real life. Where are all the girls who believe like this?" And coyly, my wife replies under me, "Oh, we're out here, winky face."
And that's the point where you were just like, "Hey, girl."
I'm like, there you go.
Hey, girl, let me get them digits.
Can I have them?
Yeah. Get out your number. Yeah. So for you Zoomers out there, that is what was known as a proto meme.
Proto meme.
Yeah, I don't know. I just made that up. But anyway, I
like it.
I remember that because that "Can I have your number" thing was a big thing when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Whenever most of these Zoomers,
when we were in high school,
when most of these Zoomers weren't even born yet. I don't know. Nobody under the age of like 40 watches this channel. So I just realized how insulting that was. I'm sorry. Haley Louie is 28 years old. But anyway. So, okay, well, cool. So actually, I want to know, like, so she commented, and you just struck up a conversation in the,
yep.
Did you like exchange emails or?
This was back in the day when YouTube still had direct messaging.
Oh.
So we were commenting back and forth under the video, like 3 or 4 back and forth. And then we went to the private messages,
mm-hmm.
and then we found each other on Facebook, and we just didn't stop talking.
Okay, I assume that conversation's still going on today.
Yeah,
you haven't stopped talking to your wife. Okay, excellent. Okay, well that's really cool. Okay, so at this point, you did kind of mention that she's the one who introduced you to the Catholic faith. So I imagine that's just like, you got to talking and just like, I guess, how did that come up?
Yeah, so we were talking back and forth a lot during this was finals week, and I was just finished with my finals, so I had the whole Christmas break to chat with my now wife, and we talked basically endlessly, which is a really fast way to get completely infatuated with another person. So we just didn't stop talking, and then early 2013, she broke it to me that she was Catholic. So,
okay.
And she was fully expecting me to be like, "Oh wow, you're not even Christian.
We're done.
We're done."
Yeah.
But again, like, I didn't have any preconceived notions. Like, there were anti-Catholics a part of my my church at the time, and they did say some things. One of the things that sticks in my mind is that one of the guys at my parents' church said that Catholics believe that communion turns into Jesus on the way down. I'm like,
interesting.
That's
a new one. I've not heard that one before.
Yeah, on the way down is how he said it.
Okay.
But anyway, So I had a vague understanding that they had some different beliefs than us.
Okay.
But I was at a stage in my life where I was primed to wrestle with new ideas. I mean, I was going through school. I was encountering people of slightly different faiths.
Mhm.
Still, so Laterno, my alma mater, is a Christian school. They actually had a dry policy, so I'm here's to you.
Cheers. We are drinking. This is the same water. These are gin and tonics.
Yeah. So anyway, they're a Christian school, and they it wasn't exclusively one denomination or something like that.
Mhm.
So I did have some encounters with, oh, you're Baptist or Methodist or
Sure.
or Presbyterian and whatnot. And so I had this like, oh, let's compare our beliefs and see which one's more truthful. And I what I somewhat call now truth mining is kind of where I went. I just dug as deep as I could into both arguments to measure them against each other. And basically the philosophy is, I don't know which one of these is true yet. I will compare them and figure that out. Whichever is more true, I will adopt that one. And that is the measure, the way, I don't know. That's the way you do like tournaments.
Mhm.
Is you pit teams against each other until you find the one that wins the most, right?
Mhm.
And he's the winner now because he was able to beat all the other ones. Maybe he's not the absolute, because because like there can always be a stronger man. There can always be a more agile man.
Right.
But at least of these people, he's the one. So that's kind of how I was pitting beliefs against each other. I was going to continuously exchange beliefs until I found the one that was most truthful of the ones that I could encounter. That's kind of how I understand what I was doing at the time. Although I wouldn't have had the language to say that's what I was doing.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're going through these a little bit, like kind of going through like a March Madness like tournament bracket of Christian denominations. It almost sounds like it's just like who wins out of this matchup, and then eventually you get the champion.
Right.
So throughout this, like, were there any options that you were like kind of like going like, oh wow, this seems like especially plausible?
Yeah, sort of. It's like, you mean alternatives to?
Yeah, I guess it's just like, well, if not Catholicism, then this.
Yeah. My mom suggested Episcopalianism.
It's like Catholicism minus the spine. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry.
Or it's just it's as close to Catholic as you can be without actually being.
Right.
So I had some of that. Not out of mine, but out of the suggestion. Like, I knew that, I don't know, like it really came down to the Eucharist. Once I encountered the Eucharist as at least a concept, I couldn't let it go until I understood it.
Right. I suppose that's one of those things. Like, if I told you that I had $1 million deal for you. Now, if you hear bogus $1 million deals like all the time, like, okay, chances are like mine's also bogus. But whenever somebody says like, James, I've got a $1 million proposition for you. You'll make $1 million. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable. If somebody's coming at you with this kind of language, it's at least one of those things like, you know what? All right. You got 5 minutes, like pitch it to me, like something like that.
Right.
So I guess with the Eucharist, it's like, that's not even like a get to heaven quick, like deal. That's just something that it's like, here's the greatest treasure that we have here on earth. And it's just one of those, well, if this is real, I want it.
Yeah.
And if it's fake, I'll let you finish that. Yeah.
Well, if it's fake, I'm like, Catholics need help.
Right. Yeah.
They seriously need help, and maybe I'm called to do that because this is how I'm encountering this. So yeah.
So what was the process like then of oh great. Oh no. Okay. Hey, Haley, can you time out this guy? But anyway, anyway, love you Thursday. But so what was the process to find out like to determine that the Eucharist was true? Like how did you go about finding that out?
Yeah, so I mean, short of the Apostle Paul, I read more Scott Hahn than any other person, or read or listened, I should say, because I listened a lot to his talks, and just wrestling with the issue back and forth, reading basically as much as I could on the subject, and until I was actually exhausted from it, and then I would come back to it as soon as I was as soon as I had the capacity to do it. I went back and forth on the issue. It's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. What do these people say? What do those people say? What are these arguments? And I'm weighing these against each other, just wading through all of the thought that came before me. And I think one of the big things was, well, looking back at it, it actually changed my understanding of what worship is. And distinguishing it from praise. Because until that point, praise and worship were synonymous. You had praise and worship music.
Right.
Praise and worship. Well, it's one word, praise and worship.
Yeah, to praise something is to worship something.
Right. So to praise or to worship means to like give honor, usually in the form of congregating and collectively singing usually, and that was what worship was to me until I realized that worship meant sacrifice to the early Jews. It meant sacrifice to the culture of the early church, and knowing that made the Eucharist make sense. He wasn't just taking our sins, he was giving himself to us. And in order to be rid of our sin, we ourselves have to change in our not necessarily in our nature, in our part of our broken nature needs to heal. So we, in our nature, our nature doesn't change. Our nature is rectified. And that started to click. It's like, oh, sacrifice, and then the foreshadowing of Christ's sacrifice in the Passover, and the Jewish roots of the Eucharist was also a big influence on me, with Brant Petrie, and seeing how the continuity of the thought of worship culminated in the Eucharist. And it wasn't just he died and he took our sins away, which is wonderful and great, but it's not all he did. It wasn't enough to reverse Adam's fault. It was God used that opportunity to give himself to us, which is something so much greater. I'm actually literally now just putting this together. It's not just a reversal of Adam's sin. It's actually something further than what Adam did. It's not coming back to neutral. It's not coming back to sinlessness. It's going beyond it to union with the divine. And yeah. I'm just now putting that together.
Well, so now like my mind goes to the liturgy of the Easter Vigil of, oh, happy fault of Adam.
Yes.
So so that's exactly it's like that warranted such that merited such a great savior or something like that. I don't know. Like Father John's probably over there like I've celebrated that mass many times, so Kyle got the words wrong. But anyway, okay, all right, cool. So that was that the Eucharist just kind of clicked for you. Now, you mentioned your objections to Mary, but was that just kind of one of those like I'll figure that out later, or
honestly, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I determined like, oh, the Eucharist, yes, no. If Eucharist, well, close enough. If Eucharist, Mary, sure. Like everything is so secondary to Jesus, to whether or not he literally, physically is with us and is giving himself to us. Mind you, I didn't say chemically, it's physically, which is a different thing, which is a big objection that I know a lot of Protestants have. It's like, look at it with a microscope. We're
not claiming any physical changes.
Yeah. I like to use the word chemical because it's like, physical means like the mass, I guess. It contains space. It contains matter or whatever. Like the chemical properties don't change. The visual measurable properties don't change, but the metaphysical properties do change.
Right.
So anyway,
I recently hit me like, cause transubstantiation is just such a big word that sometimes it's like kind of easy to just kind of lose yourself or like lose the meaning in all the syllables. Because sometimes I have some, in all my delving into like low hanging fruit apologetics and whatnot, you'll have people just kind of like ridiculing the fact that it's a big word, and which, for them, like every reasonable apologist, Catholic, Protestant, atheist, what have you, is going to say that like, making fun of the term itself is dumb. So, but like when you break it down to like, well, it's trans substance. So whenever, and I read something and it used the Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. She transformed into a dragon, but it was still her. The substance was still Maleficent. So, and you can change the form all you want, but it's still, the substance is still the same. Transubstantiation, the form doesn't change at all, which is why it's like, it's inaccurate to say like the Eucharist transforms. It's like, no, the form remains the same.
Yes.
It's the substance that changes. So it would be like if Maleficent turned into Sleeping Beauty but looked the same. That's probably heretical. So I wouldn't like hold too fast to that analogy. But yeah, so that's why like whenever I heard it broken down like that, like it was but anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. What's Thursday saying? He's saying it's just mad because I'm so cool. I'll never admit this publicly, but he's right. So yeah,
well, I think another interesting analogy would be like the Freaky Friday kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, so the person themselves become the other person's physical form,
right?
Something like that. But we're still talking persons with persons, not persons with inanimate objects. But
yeah. So okay, well, cool. Okay, so I do want to talk about how you got over your objections to Mary, or do you still hold those?
So yeah, it's honestly kind of funny to me looking back at it now, because it was a really big deal for a short period of time, and and the papacy and purgatory. I think those three.
Okay.
So Mary, papacy, purgatory. I mean, under Mary is also prayer to the saints.
Okay.
And when I understood the Eucharist, all those other things became not meaningless, but it became less meaningful. If I don't, you understand?
Yeah.
They became less meaningful. Not that I didn't need to overcome them, but but that, like, oh, if I get this one thing right, the top thing, the source and summit right, then these other things are going to follow.
Right.
Like it almost logically follows, if the Eucharist is true, you have to have a priesthood. If you have to have a priesthood, you must have a head of it.
Right.
Like, you can't really do without that. This is kind of why orthodoxy was never even on the radar for me, is because, like, I had to wrestle through the papacy at the same time as the Eucharist. And the papacy became so much less than the Eucharist, as far as the import of the topic,
right?
That I'm like, I'll deal with that a little later. I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah. There's oh man, I had something. Okay. Yeah. No. I asked that to a friend of mine who, while he was on his journey to Catholicism, I asked him the question. Like you said, the Eucharist is so tied to the priesthood, because without a priesthood, there is no Eucharist.
Right.
And I asked it because he was just like, "Oh yeah, I believe in the real presence." And I was said, like, "Okay, well, who can confect the Eucharist?" And I had to unpack that a little bit for him. And he's just like, "Well, priest." And then he said that instinctively. He's like, I mean, ministers or pastors. And I was just like, okay, very, very good. Like, can I do it? Like, if I took the proper, what? I was like, no, you couldn't do it. And I'm like, okay, well then pastors can't. Okay. Well, what makes a pastor? Well, a bishop makes a pastor. Well, what makes a bishop? And, and it was just like, and then who's to say that? And it's so funny. I did an interview with a guy named Chris Klopp, and I did not realize that. So my buddy, he was coming from a Methodist background. So John Wesley. Yeah. I did not know that, like, Charles Wesley wrote the equivalent of like an 18th century diss track about his brother, of like, but it was in the form of a hymn. And it was just like, you lay your hands on other men, but who laid hands on thee? And it was just like, this is an 18th century diss track, and I don't this. It's just so,
that's brilliant.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know to bring that up, because by the time I had that interview, my buddy was already like, I need to be Catholic. And
yeah,
thanks be to God, he was brought into the Easter Vigil, brought in this past Easter Vigil. So, but anyway, yeah. So no, that's really cool. So, what was? So I guess with the prayers to the saints, prayers to Mary, was that just something that, like, how, I guess, what was the cure for that?
Man,
or was it just like you steeped long enough that you just kind of got over it?
It's going, like, which month is it? It was probably 10 years right now. Okay. That I was no, because it was in May that I basically made my resolve.
Okay.
So it was just over 10 years ago. So this is digging a little bit to remember this all. So the cure for prayers to the saints and kind of Mary and the saints are so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, when we have papal authority, then the Marian dogma are like, okay,
right,
yeah, sure,
right.
Well, we're good now.
All of a sudden, the argument of because the Pope said so works.
Yeah,
I mean, so it's like, that sounds lame, and it's just like, well, yeah, but, like, if an appeal to authority is only fallacious whenever the authority actually has no authority,
right?
So it's yeah. So it's just like, why did you put that hole in the wall? Because the owner of the house told me to.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay, that's why that hole is there.
Yeah. I have no objection anymore.
Yeah, sure. It's funny because a guy named Kyle is talking about punching holes in drywall. But anyway, so okay, but yeah, okay. So you got through the Pope. Now, what was it that helped you through the Pope?
Yeah, so we were actually talking about this a little earlier. the keys, Matthew 16, and the parallel with Isaiah 22.
Yep.
And that parallel was really strong, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That, like, even if it's not foreshadow, it was at least reference when Christ said, you are Peter, and upon this rock I build my church. I give you the keys of the kingdom. What you show, what you
whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven.
Yeah, will have been bound. Yeah.
Will have been bound. Yeah.
Yeah. Accurate translations and all.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so for like the two of you that are going to watch this that are not familiar with this, but the parallel in Isaiah 22 would be, with Eliakim being, what you shall open, none shall shut, and what you shall shut, none shall open. So,
right.
Yeah, no, that's, I've heard some people say that that's a little less than convincing, but others disagree. So I don't know. Like, what do you think like the solution to that is? Because like it seems like, as an uneducated layman, there's lots of smart people on any side of the conversation. Like, if I wanted to believe anything, I could find somebody wildly intelligent that holds that position. Like, how do us mere mortals, like, I don't know, like, how do we figure that out?
Yeah, well, funny you should ask. We need an authority, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that literally goes back to exactly what we're talking about. Like, there must be some way for us to deliberate between each other, not being peers. So there must be other than peer.
Mm-hmm.
In this conversation.
Yeah.
Therefore, there must be some hierarchy, right?
Right.
If there are things other than peers, then you must have also. So if it goes vertically, that means hierarchy. So, where was I going to go with that? So the parallel between Isaiah and Matthew was one element. The other element, or elements, if I can think of them off the top of my head, the fact that he conferred on his apostles something different than Peter as well. They all of the apostles were given the authority to forgive or retain sins.
Right.
But Peter was unique. Same thing in the Acts. Peter was routinely stood up and pronounced, and the argument was over.
Right.
So people submitted to Peter in there. So then the idea is, does that persist? The other thing that was heavily on my mind at the time was temple authority. So to the early Jews, the temple was the authority of God. Where did that go when Christianity came? It went somewhere. It didn't evaporate.
Right.
So it went into the church. Where is the church? There was a head to there was a high priest in the Sanhedrin, right? There must be a head to the apostles. The authority. The authority was in the temple was the literal presence of God to the Jews, right? The mercy seat and the Holy of Holies, and like every there was an ever increasingly sharp locale. Is the term that's coming to mind, that like, this is where it all happens. This is where everything comes from. This is where the authority radiates, and then it goes out, and that had to go somewhere. And this also kind of allowed me a kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation about what the early church, what the Jews thought was sacrifice, or was worship. Worship and sacrifice were really deeply parallel, and worship implied some sacrifice. so the early the early church and the Jewish contemporary with Jesus was this religion, this thought, this culture. What did they think about this, and how might that be interpreted? I was mentioning the Jewish roots of the Eucharist, and like there are many other parallels. Brant Petrie had written other things and given other talks that I listened to as well, that united even more into this theme of church. The church is what the true religion became. So the true religion pre-Christ was Judaism, or it was the Hebrews, the Jews, the Israelites. They had the true religion, and the true religion became Christianity. And where did that go? So there had to be some continuity. So there are so many little tendrils, I guess you could say, that weave through this understanding that I had to develop in order to understand where was the church, what is worship, why do we church, like what do we do when we gather as Christians, right. What are we called to do, where do we go when we die? So that gets into the saints and a different understanding of the continuity and unity of all of Christianity. If we partake in if we partake in the one bread, we become one body. We just celebrated Corpus Christi a week and a half ago, and that gets incorporated into these ideas. Like we become one. We are divinized. And that is what church is. This happened a little later, but I started to develop even more parallels between church and marriage as I was considering marriage with my wife. So we married in 2015. And I converted in 2013. And seeing marriage as an image of Christ and His church, and allowing the two to illuminate each other, and when two become one flesh, right? Two become one flesh. That's what marriage is. We become one, and also when two become one flesh, the church in Christ, that's when life happens. And seeing this is all like staging up, like almost everything that I was going through in 2013 as I was wrestling with whether to come into the church was almost staging up my understanding of a new understanding of the Eucharist, such that I become one with Christ through the Eucharist. And like that is heaven. If we can say that marital bliss is in a finite way heaven on earth, right? Then so too can we say that the unity with Christ literally is heaven. And that I kind of feel like I'm starting to ramble.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So I guess my big takeaway from this, and just correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like your love for the faith really stems from the fact that you just met a cute girl.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, nothing else. Yeah, no. Okay. So, but I don't know. Did anybody like accuse you of that? Like you're just joining this cult because you met a cute girl?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, I mean, I guess what's your response to that? Like if people...
I actually think I think I still have it saved. My response is like, don't accuse me of turning away from the face of my God because I saw a pretty one. And that I might have paraphrased it, but that that's what I wrote in response. I'm like, no, I am doing so much work in understanding what I'm getting into that I can't, it doesn't even, my wife was almost not my at that time not even girlfriend was hardly on my mind when I was considering these things. Like I wasn't converting for her.
Right.
I wasn't doing the studying for her. She just happened to be next to me while I was doing it.
Okay.
And that created a strong bond between us, which I am very glad for, and it turned into marriage. But it wasn't for her. I converted for me. I converted for Jesus.
Yeah. So, okay. So after you like made your resolve to become Catholic, were you guys dating at that time or?
Yeah. So I mentioned we met online. We met on YouTube of all places.
Right.
And so we met online. We were only talking. And we were totally remote. We lived 900 miles apart from each other, or whatever the number really is. I don't know, maybe 500.
Yeah.
And we never even saw each other in person until early 2014. So it was a year and a month and a day or something, or a year and a month and minus a day when we finally met in person.
So you had already been brought into the church by the time.
Oh yeah.
She never saw Heathen James.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Okay. So did you started dating, you said in 2014, you said, or?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2014, but I came up to Rolla over spring break in 2014. And that's when we officially started dating, even though we were really dating remotely.
The emotions were there. Yeah.
We were just making like Facebook official. Or
oh yeah. Well, I think my wife and I mean, obviously I was already Catholic and she was already Catholic whenever we met, but like we didn't become Facebook official, which to you two Zoomers and Thursday that are watching right now, that's whenever
is Thursday a Zoomer?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the quintessential Zoomer.
The quintessential Zoomer.
Like, I mean, if you think generic standard Zoomer with no distinguishing features, that's Thursday. So
that was such a good compliment.
Yeah. But anyway, ladies, there's nothing interesting about him. I don't mean, I'm only roasting him because he was in the chat. I don't think he's here anymore.
Is he not?
He's probably not going to hear that. So thankfully, the blow to his confidence won't happen. But but anyway, no. So we didn't become Facebook official until I'd actually had a chance to talk to her dad. But like he was just like, I mean, what am I going to do? Say no? Like, but yeah. So that's really cool. So I guess, was she like elated whenever you decided, or were you guys just really kind of just casual friends?
Oh, so previous to my actual resolve to convert, I took her through the emotional ringer because she was there the whole time I was wrestling through these things, and I was messaging her the whole time. So when I was doing well, maybe this or maybe that, I was like giving her hope and slashing it, and giving her hope and slashing it. And so I so it's great that she that she stuck with me through that. Anyway, when I did finally decide that I needed to become Catholic, I had a brief period where I thought that I was receiving a call to the priesthood.
Oh,
and that devastated her.
Oh goodness!
I mean that without any jest. It really did, and I was scheduled to be confirmed and first communion in like 5 days at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so distraught. So I eventually decided that I was too excited to be a physical father and it would gnaw on me if I became a spiritual father and not a physical father.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of had that same thing too, like around like my conversion too. Is like, well, should I be a priest and whatnot? And like looking back on it now, it's just like, wow, if I could write a book on like how not to discern the priesthood, like I did it. Like, I mean, I guess the thing that I could really say is that I just strongly considered it, and considered it a distinct possibility. But like, I didn't, I never went on any retreats. I never, talked to anybody about it. And I kind of came to that same conclusion though, of like, I feel like I'm being called to be a dad, not a father. And yeah, so I mean, obviously, I'm married and got kid number 5 on the way, and
Yeah.
So the rest is history. But yeah, so but no, that's really cool. Now, so she, yeah, I kind of got a little bit of that, understand a little bit of that devastation, because my wife, whenever we met, she was planning on becoming a nun.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, like the time investment wasn't remotely the same, because I was, I'd only known her for like a couple of weeks by the time I figured out that she was going to be a nun. And then at that point it was just like, oh crap, she's going to be a nun. Dang, well, at least her roommate's cute. And then I got to know her roommate a little better, and it was just like, oh well, no, nope, never mind. But which, I mean, she'll never watch this, but I've told that story to her former roommate a few times. But yeah, so okay, well that's really cool. So you were brought into the church shortly thereafter. Like, she was elated that you joined the church, devastated that you were gonna break up with her and like go marry the church instead. And then you're like, no, never mind. And then
I think the timeline's a little fuzzy, but so I said like 5 days prior. That's like a very rough estimate.
Yeah.
My aunt, who is my confirmation sponsor, because I have a Catholic side of my family. My aunt, who was my confirmation sponsor, was really encouraging me because well, the state of the church, how many priests do we have? Our current parish is our local parish. We're members of the same oratory, but I have also a home parish closer than an hour and 40 minutes. Our home parish is run by a priest who has 2 other parishes to run.
Yeah.
And he's the only one in our county.
Goodness.
It's a
God bless him.
Yes, most definitely. God bless him. And looking back on it, I'm like, I could have been either way. I could have been good work, I could have been fertile soil for God to use. So my resolve is to fill next generation's priesthood.
Yep. Have as many sons as you possibly can.
Indeed.
And send them all to seminary.
We're on 2. Maybe number 3 is boy 2. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? But yeah, well, that's cool. But yeah, no, it's funny because like our 5th one is our 3rd boy. And one of the things that I've said before is that like if all 3 of my boys become priests, and because my older brother passed away in 2015, so like for the Whittington name to carry on, like, or at least like my dad's line to carry on through the last name Whittington, like I'm the last shot, or I suppose my 3 boys are the last shot now. But it's just like, but if they all 3 of them become priests and the Whittington name is wiped off the face of the planet, I think that's a just punishment for the crimes of the English. So it's just like, yeah, no, the Whittington name doesn't need to stick around as long as the our Lord Jesus Christ is still proclaimed.
Yeah.
But
the name Whittington, the name Lewis could go away and
will go away.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It may take a while.
Yeah.
Depending. But anyway, it can go away, but what will not is the church.
Right.
And that's the more important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think filling next generation's roster of new priests is a good goal of mine.
So whenever you kind of like, I guess, came out of the closet to your family, so how did that go? Obviously, you said your aunt was super supportive, but like, how'd your parents take it?
Yeah. So they don't really know much about the faith either. They are more along the lines of the rest of my former faith communities. Understanding of the church, very, very basic, but they had more influence from the anti-Catholics that are a part of that community, and they came up to my confirmation, which was really surprising, and well, a welcome surprise, but they were like shocked, especially my mom. Shocked, maybe disgusted, or at least hurt. And I know the feelings persist a ways. One of my brothers seems to be still thinking, and will actually converse, which is a pleasant change of pace, because most of the people I interacted with when I was discerning conversion were not the conversing type, more like the twist your words into any way I can to to make my point type.
So what you're saying is,
right. So what you're saying is the Channel 4 all over again, right?
Yeah.
But that was a theme for a lot of people. But that's probably because the people who did converse were the people who wanted to be militant.
Sure.
That's a very real possibility. And the people who would have listened, would have conversed, are the people who don't spend all of their time on Facebook.
Right.
And because of my personality, of this, like I was saying, the relentless pursuit of truth, it didn't matter who I was talking with. I was trying to figure it out, and it didn't matter with whom I was talking. I would just talk through it. And unfortunately, the people who have all the time in the world to argue with you online are the ones who just want to argue.
Right.
Yeah.
No. And I've noticed, I'm not going to name any names here, but I've noticed this trend in online apologetics. And I'll be honest, like, I've found myself guilty of this too a few times. And it's a really serious problem, where it seems like the focus is more on winning an argument than it is being concerned about the good of the other person. And like, I sincerely think that that's a real problem, because, whenever we're talking about the love of God, once again, I'm not naming any names, but there's one apologist that I've listened to, and I've considered doing like low hanging fruit stuff about them or whatever, but at no point have I ever gotten the impression that this person cares about my good. They only want victory in the argument. And it's just like, it's not like, hey, I'm begging you to convert to this group. Well, no, it's more like, you're an idiot for being Catholic. And it's just like, and this is why you should see it my way. And it's just like, okay, well, I mean, maybe I am dumb, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. And also, like, I don't know, like, if you don't care about my good, then why should I listen to this online stranger?
Right.
And I suppose when we're engaging in these conversations, that's the mindset we really need to have, even if it's a YouTube comment. And once again, like, out of everybody, I am by far the most guilty at like falling short of that. Like, it's, especially because I monitor comments for Trent Horn, and it's, oh my goodness, some of those are quite the doozies. But yeah, it's just like, well, is what I'm going to say going to bring this person to their ultimate good, or is it just going to hurt them, make them feel insulted, and are they going to leave dejected?
So what is the goal of an argument, of a debate? Is it to pursue truth? Because if one of you has more truth than the other can adopt that new truth. That's a good goal. If the goal of a debate is to win, winning is meaningless. Winning a debate, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
What good what good does it do to win if it isn't resulting in an increase in the other's understanding?
Right. Yeah. And like, so whenever I'm doing these conversations, or whenever I'm monitoring these comments, especially like on trends videos that just get so many, there's certain things that I do look for and to decide if I'm even going to engage or not. And there are a few things, and I want y'all to pay attention. Like, these are the things that I'm looking for on like whether or not I'm going to respond to a comment. I highly recommend that you pick these up too. One, I'm looking for accusations. If you're accusing me of ill intent, or if you're accusing me of like saying something that I'm not, then quite frankly, I'm not going to waste the time to talk to you, because it's just like, okay, well, it's like, well, so what you're saying is that murder's okay. No, I'm not saying that. That's stupid. Now, let me see if you can, but you can reword that to kind of get that same thing across. And that's like, okay, let me state my understanding just so you can correct me where I got it wrong. It sounds like you're saying that murder is okay. No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, cool. Let's bring that out a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can make a statement that says the way you are stating this implies that murder is okay, and then your colloquitor will have to say, here's why it doesn't.
Right.
So you still progress towards, and it's not bending over backward to be nice, because nice isn't a virtue. Charity is a virtue.
Right.
But again, true charity isn't nice, and it's not an untactful opposition.
Right.
Just pure malicious attacking.
Yeah.
So there is the healthy medium between the two. You're not just giving them all the benefit of the doubt and interpreting it for them in a way that that would profit them, nor are you interpreting it in a way that only would profit you. You are being honest with your understanding with them and saying, this is the logical conclusion that comes with this statement said this way.
Yeah.
And then you can offer it to them to either nuance their statement or to double down and dig a hole deeper.
Yeah, it's actually something that I've been struggling with this recently, and it's regular viewers are going to be aware that I do the low hanging fruit stuff, and it's all good fun and all. But one thing that I've definitely noticed is that if the person that you're responding to isn't actually present, it's super easy to strawman them, even if you're not meaning to.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in my low hanging fruit stuff, I try to keep it where it's just like, okay, you said this thing that's not the Catholic teaching. Let's just state the Catholic teaching and move on. But oftentimes it's not that, and oftentimes I find myself yeah, no, I did strawman that position. I didn't mean to, but I 100% did. And I don't know, sometimes I think maybe I should reach out to these people prior to doing a video response to them. Now, if they tell me okay, whatever, kid, get bent, and I'm cool, see you on my dumb video. But yeah, so I don't know,
yeah, you know what? A really good example of this sort of a thing is even present within Catholic circles is the back and forth argument between distributism versus capitalism.
Right.
When a distributist accuses somebody who wants the free market as being a capitalist. What one says, what one accuses of the other is really a straw man of their position. So like somebody who likes G.K. Chesterton will say, I don't believe in the free market because blah blah blah, and they think free market means capitalism, and capitalism means what Marx decided capitalism meant, and that's entirely not what the person who wants a free market means, and vice versa. The person who is the person who wants a free market thinks the distributist wants to take away his property and give it to the poor, which would be theft.
Yeah.
So it requires an honesty about each other's positions and a desire to understand the other, such that you can form more understand the nuances on their position. So free market means the freedom to work as you ought, not licensed to do whatever you want in the marketplace. Whereas, and on the other side, the distributist wants to establish policies that make it easier for those for men to have what they need, not to take from the rich and give to the poor. The Robin Hood kind of an idea, because we can boil it down to a single word, we assign that word to the other person's position, and I think that and many other topics like it are we boil it down to a single word, and that leaves very little to nuance about the position, and very few people will do the work of nuancing on the other person's behalf.
Yeah. No, it's communication's tricky, and it's one of those things that like most people suck at it.
Tell me.
I would say that like most people are not good at communicating, and and for the people who are good at it, some days are better than others, and I don't know, like it's tough. I just really wish that was a skill that like people in society at large would take a little bit more seriously. But especially if you're going to be engaging in apologetics and stuff like that, that's something that like definitely like there's a few principles to understand, and that's one. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Now you can say like that shouldn't be the case. It's like cool, it is the case though. So whatever. You play with the hand that you're dealt. Yeah. So if you come in just wanting to show off how smart you are, nobody's going to listen to you. Yeah. Like nobody's going to take you seriously. Congratulations, you're smarter than me.
Lead with charity.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these online apologists, like that's all they're there. That's seemingly all they're there to do. Now, of course, that's just an accusation, but that's why I'm not naming names. Though, like I'm sure when I describe that behavior, like there's a few people that have come to mind. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that you any topic that we didn't quite touch on that you'd like to get to?
I'm running through the topics that we've already we have already touched on. Yeah, it's kind of, well, you know what, this is something that's pretty close to my heart after having converted is taking more seriously the second greatest command, which is to love thy neighbor. And I've, because of becoming Catholic, it seems to be something's like really really secondary compared to some of the other like struggles that that would lead somebody into the church. But this new understanding, like, okay, so faith and works was in some ways another topic that I had to wrestle through, until I realized, oh, we actually believe exactly the same thing when I let the Catholic position actually pan out.
Right.
And when I realized the importance of works, I realized the importance of the second greatest command, to love thy neighbor. And I'm like, oh, this is a new thing, a new way to interpret some of the parables, like the parable of the rich man, the rich young man. He went away sad. Why was he sad? Jesus gave him instructions to attain eternal life, to give away his wealth to the poor. He loved his wealth more than the poor.
Right.
He put his material goods above his neighbor, and that is what that parable was trying to say. And that extends itself into today's day and age. And I mentioned the debate upon economics and stuff. Like, it extends itself in today's day and age. That's what we are supposed to be doing entirely. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love thy neighbor as yourself. That's it. Done. And we're given Jesus to help us. We are literally given Jesus, and he can love our neighbor through us, and we can love God through loving neighbor. And that it just, everything becomes an expression of love. God is love. God expresses himself through nature. This is how we are made to be. And that this new understanding has given me a lot of direction. In fact, it inspired the way I do my work now, in my actual profession. It is the core principle. It's the foundation of my of what I do for work. And that would have never happened if I didn't become Catholic.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, man. Well, so where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Well,
this is the part where you plug your business.
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
So yes. So I am Fresh Eyes Incorporated, fresheyes.com. And I didn't want to give a shameless plug without.
This is what this is for.
This is what this is for.
This is me explicitly asking for a shameless plug.
Yes. All right.
And this
shameless
is me
plug.
Explicitly, shamelessly asking for super chats. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah. So
okay,
fresheyes.com, and I help my clients through a brand strategy copywriting process that incorporates our Christian faith into our businesses. And I help my clients understand what they actually do from a philosophical standpoint, breaking down services. Like, we offer some sort of truth, some sort of good, some sort of beauty to our neighbors. How do we love our neighbor? How do we do good in the world? How do we image God in the world? And understanding that in a new way. And then understanding our neighbor. Who is it that needs us? How is it that he needs us to communicate what we have to offer to him? All right, so let's communicate what good do we offer? And it's not the measurable empirical good. It's the true good that is experienced. You don't give the plumber. The plumber doesn't just fix his neighbor's pipes. He restores his neighbor's home to right order, and therefore loves his neighbor. And he does some good that increases his neighbor in some way. Truth, goodness, beauty. That's what he offers. And I'm obviously passionate about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, I'll put a link for that down in the description. So if y'all want to check him out, but
thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So this was kind of a little bit of a last minute live stream. Like I didn't actually know that we were going to do it live until I saw how good the picture looked in here. This is so shout out to Drew Lowen, aka Drew the Catholic, who helped me get the sound setup working. Because this is the first time like I've done an interview with like 2 mics. So that I own, because I've had Dom Dalmaso in here before, and like he brought his mics, and it was anyway, it worked. But anyway, for those of y'all that stuck around this long, thanks for watching. God bless both of you who are live and in the mysterious future.